everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca Stu and the crew. I'm Rebecca, and today we have some new holiday DIYs for you guys using items from the Dollar Tree. We'll be making 3 different projects today, and I'll put the supplies for each project before we begin. So for our first project that we're going to make, the supplies we'll need will be a Dollar Tree sign. I'm going to use this one on the stand. We'll need some of the natural wood beads, a window cling, also some shamrocks. We're going to use some paper shamrocks. They also have them in foam. We'll need some ribbon of your choice that will coordinate with the design that you're going to make, and some floral ribbon. We're also going to use some flowers and a little bit of greenery. I'll need some chalk paint, some antiquing wax. We're also going to use some cardstock and some Mod Podge. We'll need a paintbrush, a pair of scissors, some hot glue, and a damp paper towel. So let's get crafty. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this paper backing off of the sign. So I am going to use a razor blade to help scrape it off because there's a lot of glitter on this sign and I didn't want it to be anywhere in our project. Now this will become the back of our project, so it doesn't have to be super smooth, but we are going to paint it just so we have a nice finish all the way around. And I'm just going to paint this with some chalk paint so the paint's a little bit thicker. And I did end up using 2 coats just because I didn't want to put it on too thick for the first coat, and I wasn't quite sure if we were going to be able to see through it, but we were still able to see through the paint, so I decided to go ahead and put a second coat of paint on, especially for the stand since it was a bright pink. Then I went in with a tiny little bit of the antiquing wax. I'm just going to brush a little bit on the base, and I'll do the same for the backing. And we're really just using a tiny little bit, and as the brush gets a little bit drier, that's a good thing because you don't want to put too much on. We're just pretty much smearing it, and the white paint underneath is still a little bit wet, which is what you want because we're going to end up blending this all together. I went in with a dry brush and added a little bit of black chalk paint as well, just a tiny little bit on the brush. And then I'll take a paper towel that is wet, and I'm just going to lightly rub over top of the paint and smear all of the colors together to help give it an aged look. And here's what it looks like. We'll let this dry. So while it's drying, let's take our thicker pieces of wire. You find it over by the floral wire and these natural wood beads. I'm going to cut the twine and just pull the beads off. We're going to do 6 natural color beads, and then Dollar Tree sells a big bag of multicolor beads. We're going to pull the medium-sized green beads out, and we're going to add 1 green bead after we do 6 natural color beads. And we'll continue this pattern until we have a big enough piece that we're going to be able to create a like a wreath form that's going to go all the way around the perimeter of our wood sign that we have. So depending on the wood sign you're using will depend on how large you need to make your wreath. So now that we have all the beads on, we're just going to take the ends of the wire and we're going to fish it through the last bead that we have on the wire. And then we'll be able to pull these 2 pieces tight until we close up all the spaces between the beads. And then take that wire and wrap it around each side of the last bead. And once you have it wrapped around about 2 times, and you can go ahead and snip that wire off and then tuck the ends in. You'll want to arrange your beads so they make a nice circle. Just try to get it as straight as possible. It doesn't have to be super perfect. We're going to add a bow, and so that's going to hide a little bit of it. And of course, my cats are coming to help. So now, as you can see, we've got that top with the little piece of wire kind of tucked in, and we're not going to see that. That's going to be the top where the bow is at. Now I'm going to take a little tiny bit of that antiquing wax and a wet paper towel. We're going to add just a small amount, probably about a teaspoon worth of the antiquing wax on the damp rag, and we're just going to rub this over top of our beaded wreath that we just made, and you just want to wipe it all the way around. Just kind of spin the beads. We're just putting a very light color on the beads just to get it to pop off of the background with the sign. I noticed that once I did the coloring on the back of the sign when I painted it, that the beads were kind of getting lost in the background and it was just blending together a little bit too much. So I needed to darken the beads, which is why we're doing this step. If you paint your background a different color, then go ahead and leave the beads the natural color if that's what you like. It's really just personal preference. And once we get all of the beads stained, we'll just let them dry for a few minutes. So now we're going to make a bow. I have this really cute gnome St. Patrick's Day ribbon. We're going to cut a small piece and then we'll just dovetail the ends. So to measure, you just want to have 3 or 4 of the gnomes showing. And then I cut 2 larger pieces where there were 6 gnomes showing. So that kind of gives you an idea how long it is. Then I had this greenery that I got over the summer. I'm going to cut some pieces the same length. We'll dovetail all of the ends, and then we're just going to pretty much fan fold these in the center and then collect them. We'll do 2, one for the top and the bottom, and then the smaller one will go right on the top like a layer. Then we'll take the smaller gingham ribbon and we're going to tie it right around the center to create the middle of the bow. We'll adjust the ribbon. And then we'll pull the gingham ribbon down and we'll dovetail the bottom of that as well. And you can add more here. It's really up to you how full you're going to want your bow to be. So here's what our bow looks like. So now we'll start gluing this all together. We're just going to add some glue to the beads and then we're going to center it on our sign. And make sure that that little piece we had that we planned to be the top is at the top so that you can disguise that wire with your bow. So I've got this all glued down into place. And then we'll take some more hot glue and we'll add our bow. And once that's dry, then we will take a little bit of this greenery. We're just going to fold it in half and then kind of fan fold it and fold it in half again to create these little tufts of greenery ribbon just kind of to stick in the back behind the gnome ribbon. And that's just going to help hold the ribbon up a little bit, fill it out, and make it look a lot more full. And it adds some few dimensions there. Now we're going to take a green flower from their farmhouse collection. We pull it off the stem and we'll just glue that right in the center of our bow. Add a little bit of this faux baby's breath we also picked up from the Dollar Tree. And then we'll let that dry. So while all that is drying, we're going to work on our gnome that's going to go on our sign. Now when you put these right on the signs, you can usually see through them quite a bit. So we're going to flip the gnome over and we're going to add some Mod Podge and then lay him on top of a piece of scrapbook paper, just a piece of plain white paper. You could even use copy paper. And then what we're going to do is just take our scissors and cut all the way around the gnome, removing that blue edge that comes on the window cling. Some window clings have that edge, some of them don't. This one does have the blue line around the outside. If you don't want to remove the blue line, that's okay too. It's really up to you. I just thought it looked a little bit better without the blue line all the way around the gnome. So remember, we glued this down to the construction paper, which was nice. It helps to, or the copy paper, it helps to make it a little bit more sturdy. Then we'll flip that over and we will add more Mod Podge to the back. Now this is going directly onto the paper. And then we'll center it on our sign and brush it down to make sure there's no bubbles underneath. You can put Mod Podge over top of this if you choose to. It's really not necessary. Then I had these paper shamrocks. You could also use the foam mini shamrock stickers that they have at Dollar Tree. And we're just going to put a little bit of Mod Podge down, stick the shamrock down, and then add some Mod Podge to the top. And you can just add as many shamrocks as you like, or you don't have to add any. It's really just personal preference. I thought it looked cute with a few extra shamrocks, and so that's why I wanted to add a few to mine. And that's what it looks like, all done. So our first project is finished. It's super easy, but so cute to stick around the house for St. Patrick's Day. Now for our second craft, we're going to again use those paper shamrocks, the window cling. We're also going to use that same construction paper or copy paper, the ribbon. We'll use some of the scrapbook ribbon that's adhesive on the back. And you could use either a Cricut or you can use a paint marker to write on your sign, some gel stain, and then a piece of wood. Even a cutting board will work. You'll need a paintbrush and some Mod Podge. We're also going to use some hot glue, scissors, and a rag. So let's get crafty. So the first thing we're going to do for this sign is we're going to stain it. So I'm just taking a damp rag and we're adding a tiny little bit of stain to the sign, and we're brushing it out as best we can all the way to the edges for a nice smooth finish, and then we'll buff it with a lint-free cloth once the stain has mostly dried. Now we're going to do the same we did for the last project, which was take our window cling, add some Mod Podge, and glue him down to a sheet of paper, and then we'll cut him out, removing the border around the window cling. Okay, and then we will go ahead and add some Mod Podge to the back and add him to our sign. I decided for this one, since I used the gel stain, which can be a little bit oily, that I would add some Mod Podge over top of the little gnome leprechaun here to make sure he stays down. Now you can either take the Crafter's Square paint markers, you can use a Cricut, you could use stickers. It's really up to you to create a saying on your sign. If you're comfortable freehanding, the writing, then you could use those markers. I decided to just go ahead and print some out in a sticker style. And it says, wishing you a pot of gold and all the joy your heart can hold. And then I will add a few more of those shamrocks that we added to the last project. And we're going to put Mod Podge over the shamrocks. And then I decided to just go ahead over the stickers and everything and Mod Podge those down. And then I did a smooth layer of Mod Podge across the whole entire top. I really wanted to make sure that everything stayed glued down. Now we'll take that scrapbooking ribbon that's adhesive. We're just going to measure it across the top. And then we'll remove the backing and add this to the top of the sign. And we'll glue the edges down. Then we're just going to take that gingham ribbon, make a very simple bow by just making 2 loops and tying them in the center with a piece of twine. And now that we have it secured, we'll go ahead and cut off the excess twine. And then take another piece of the gingham ribbon. We're going to fold it in half and then create a knot around the center of the bow. We'll dovetail the ends, and then we can glue this right to the middle at the top. Now, if your ribbon gets in the way of the wording that you added to your sign, just go ahead and add a little dot of glue to hold the ribbon up and out of place so it doesn't cover your words. And then we'll add a few more shamrocks. We're going to add one to the center of the bow and a few more around the sign. Those are optional if you want to add the shamrocks or not. You could also add a hanger to this if you like, or a stand on the back, something to just help it to stand upright. Where I'm going to put mine is just going to lean, so I didn't really find it necessary to add a hanger or a stand. But again, it's up to you and where you would like to store yours in your house if you make one. So a few more shamrocks here. Make sure you Mod Podge over top. Just a few more shamrocks at the bottom to fill in any spaces that looked a little empty. is it. So this is our second project. Super simple, so fun using those window clings from the Dollar Tree. Now for our third project, really easy. Again, the supplies we're going to need for this project will be these wood hearts from the Dollar Tree. We're going to use these dried flowers, also from Dollar Tree, and then some greenery. We're going to use some chalk paint, the wood stain, a paintbrush. We'll need some yarn. I'm going to use pink on one and white on the other. We'll need some hot glue and some scissors. So let's get crafty. This is super simple and these look great on tiered trays. So we're going to take this 3D wood heart cutout and we're going to stain it. Again, we're just going to use that gel stain. I picked these up at Dollar Tree about a year ago. We're adding just a little bit of gel stain in a damp rag and we're going to smear this stain around the front, the back, and the sides and cover it as much as we can without overdoing it. We don't want to add too much stain. And then when it's mostly dry, go back over it with a lint-free cloth to take off any excess stain that hasn't soaked into the wood. I'd say wait at least 30 minutes. Now we're going to take some white paint. We're just going to very lightly dry brush some white paint over top of the heart that we've stained. You want to make sure that your stain is all the way dry. I waited probably about 40 minutes. I had to go pick my daughter up, so it was kind of easy to wait for it to dry since I had some errands to run. If you want to, you can actually stain the hearts while you stain the piece of square wood that we did in the last project. That way they all can dry at the same time and you can go like run some errands or something for about an hour and let the stain dry really well before you add anything to it. So once we've got the paint on, we're going to take that damp paper towel and just lightly buff the heart or removing some of the paint and just blending in the paint to give it an older look. And I did the front and the back of these. And I painted both of the hearts exactly the same. As you can see, I'm just putting a little tiny bit of paint on. I'm just being really careful not to overdo it. Because once you take that wet chalk paint with just a wet paper towel, even though it's just a tiny little bit of water, it really spreads out quite well. And if you still want to be able to see a little bit of that wood underneath with the stain, then you don't want to overdo it. I really just wanted these to have a gray kind of aged, weathered look is what I was going for. So now we're going to take that yarn and we're going to glue the end down. And we'll take little tiny dots of hot glue and we'll add them around the edges to make sure that the ribbon stays where we want it to be, because we're going to cross this over a few times, pretty much making like a X pattern in just a few different directions. It really doesn't matter where you put the ribbon or the yarn. It's really just personal preference. And if you want them to overlap or crisscross, do you want them to go vertical, horizontal, or at a diagonal? It's really just up to you and how you would like to decorate your wood heart piece here. I tried to get mine mainly to stay over in the corner, so it's wrapped more in like a diagonal look. And I just keep adding small dots of hot glue and hold it in place until it dries. Then we'll add a little bit of glue on the back to glue the end down. And then we'll wrap the ribbon or the yarn around the second heart. For this one, I'm going to use this light pink yarn. It's a little bit thinner. The other one was more like a Chanel. And I decided to take this one a little bit more higher up on the heart. I wanted it to be more in the center. And I just did a crisscross pattern. I'll tie the end and then cut off the excess and add some more hot glue if I need it. Now we'll just decorate the front with some flowers. I've got these dried flowers from Dollar Tree, so we'll add the white dried flower to the front and the greenery pieces. We'll tuck those up underneath of the flower. That's for the first one. For the second one, we're going to add a different flower. At first, I thought maybe I would use this pink flower. I didn't really like it, so I went and got some different flowers from my big collection of scrap flowers from old projects. I found these light pink ones that I thought would look really pretty with the white and then the color of the wood. So we're going to take 4 of those and just create this circle pattern with the flowers. And then kind of push the flowers down so they don't pop up too high off the top of the yarn. We're going to take a few pieces of scrap greenery from some old flowers as well that I just found in a drawer. We're going to cut them down to size and tuck those underneath of the flowers. I have a couple green pieces that I decided to use for this one since the coloring of the flowers and the ribbon was so light. I wanted to make sure I added a little bit more of a pop of color behind the flowers here, but really anything you choose to do with your pieces would look nice. You could add some ribbon, some bows, some of those berry garland would look really cute here. There's lots of different options you could use. And then if you want to, you can add hangers to these. I'm just going to lean mine on one of those tiered trays, so I did not add a hanger. So here are all the projects that we've made today. Very easy. Anybody could make these. I really hope it encourages you to try crafting. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And here are some other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.